Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique Johnson-Lindsay, and I want to welcome you to the Active Listener podcast by Lightspeed. As a lifelong learner and the daughter of a Navy veteran who became an elementary school teacher, education and service are in my DNA. This foundation, paired with my love of technology, led me to these conversations with remarkable minds shaping the K-12 landscape. Join us as we amplify these vital voices and explore how active listening remains foundational to educational excellence. Whether you're an educator, administrator, or someone passionate about the future of education, there's something here for you to learn. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Active Listener podcast. I am Dominique Johnson-Lindsay, the host. And today I have a really special guest joining me. So I have Dr. Lisa Dailey. So Lisa is based out of Oregon, and she is in school leadership. So before we get started, Lisa, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Dailey. I'm a middle school principal, and I have been in education, I think, now for 17 years.
Oh, my goodness. So 17 years, that is so long. So I have to kind of start there with why education? I'm always curious because obviously being a principal is definitely like hands-on role. And so I'm always curious about like what is keeping people inside of the school. So why education?
Well, I thought I wanted to be a social worker. So I had a social worker growing up, and I think that she saved my life. And so I wanted to do that. And my husband recommended that I volunteer. And I quickly realized that there is a special place in heaven for social workers, and that's not for me. But I did want to give back to the community, and I really struggled in math. And so I decided that that's where I wanted to serve the community is through by being a math teacher.
Gotcha. So going from being in the classroom, we kind of starting out there to leadership. What did that journey look like as far as why you wanted to pursue that?
Yeah, so I loved teaching. I still love teaching every time I can get into a classroom to teach, and it's like fills my cup. It's great. But I really saw some changes that I was excited about, and I think my first really change that I wanted to address was grading practices. And so I got on this grading practices leadership team, and then we just started talking big picture and how to serve more and more students. And so that's kind of how I got into leadership, just really liking talking about big system-wide changes to better education for our kids.
Gotcha. I love that. And it's kind of what people always say we need in schools is people with these like big and bright ideas about, kind of changing the way we were doing things and not just doing the same old things over and over again, because we know school is always changing. Like I think about, I am approaching 20 years of being out of high school, and I just think about it looks different already from the 20 years ago that I was in high school versus the 20 years ago or 40 years ago that my mom was in high school. Like it's always so different that people need to kind of breathe in new life and kind of just new ideas. And that's not only for the students, it is for the teachers as well. So I love to hear that. So segueing, I think it is very unique and commendable that you just completed your doctorate degree not too long ago. Actually, I feel like almost first time I met you. Talk to me about what the process was like for your program and ultimately what you decided to kind of like focus your dissertation on.
Yeah, so I mean, the program was 3 years, and it was really great because I found a university that it was majority online, and so it allowed me to be a parent and a wife and an educator as well while pursuing my doctorate. And so, so it was 2 years of coursework, and then 1 full year within that coursework time um, of research and look into the topic. My topic was I really wanted to center around at-risk youth at the middle school level, just because there's a lot of interventions in the elementary level and at the high school level, but middle school kind of gets forgotten about, and it's such a crucial time of development for youth. And so that's where I decided to focus on.
That's such a unique like world to wrap your mind around, because I feel like middle school is when you are truly like forming like this kind of identity that will carry you. But at the same time, it is such that middle age that it's like, you don't really know enough yet. We either have to tend to the babies or we have to get college ready. So talk about, almost like what is the middle school experience like as a leader of middle schoolers? How do you kind of figure out like where to focus in on?
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a great question because it really is a wide spectrum, right? You do have these babies who are just coming out of fifth grade. And, and in some cases, some of their behaviors are very elementary. And then you have eighth graders that some of them look like they are 10th or 11th graders, right? They have beards and they're taller than you are. And yet they still they're very immature in their thinking, right? Like, so that's what, we focus on is like the development of their brain is that even though they look like adults, they don't have the brain uh, capacity or the development of an adult just yet. And so one of the things that the research really shows is that using like a universal screener and making sure that we are tending to the data, like what is our data and telling us, including what our kids are telling us, right? We can't ignore their experience. So when you overlay, any internalizing behavior screeners, to look for depression, anxiety, because a lot of kids, they suppress it and it's hard to identify. But when you have the externalizing behaviors, when kids are punching walls, like we can respond to that very easily. And so using all of that to focus on, to create our focus for the year is really crucial. And there's just so many things. And there's so many things also to decide on. And so, including families to make sure that we are responding to, what they're hearing around the dinner table. That's what I always ask my families. I'm like, what is your kid telling you around the dinner table? Because it might be completely different than what we experience with them here.
So that's so interesting you say that, because I think the one thing that always comes to mind for me is there are so many competing like goals at school. Always probably the one that currently get forgot about the most. And I think within the last, I've probably been in K-12 almost 5 years now, like working with this space, is this push for the social emotional learning kind of side of things. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's kind of brought to our attention by social media and what we're experiencing as adults, but I think kids experience it at a whole different level. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question is more rooted in how do you incorporate that into the schools, whether it's for students really or for teachers that are handling these students with these kind of needs?
Yeah, I mean, in Oregon too, I think it's mandated that we provide SEL lessons to our students, but really it needs to be embedded in every interaction that we have with students and in every content. So it can't just be this one thing we do in isolation 20 minutes a week. Because, we're all made up of our emotions and that comes out in our behavior and it's influenced by our social interactions. I mean, it's not just something that happens in isolation. And so yes, we do the mandated SEL curriculum that we need to. But more than that, it's about building relationships and creating a school where students feel like they belong and they're connected to them, to their peers and the staff here. And so that's kind of, our approach to it is more of, interwoven in everything that we do.
So I think building on that, one of the things that comes to mind for me is there is, as much as it's mandated in Oregon or other, states, there is always kind of a subset of people, I'll say, that kind of say like we need to focus on almost the main thing, the instruction, right? Like that's just kind of what comes to mind for me. And of course, this is generational difference or whatever. But talk to me about how you explain to whether it's friends and family or just other people inside the school about the importance of this kind of work, and what are the long-term impacts that can happen with kids if these needs are not tended to?
So I think that with any content area or just with whatever learning, you have to have some sort of relationship with the student to get them to see the importance of it and to like spark their curiosity, right? So that they can make those connections themselves. And we have students who bring in lots of trauma, you know, who leave the car after having a fight with a parent. And if we just put them in a classroom and say, okay, now you're going to learn math, and we're, you 12-year-old you have to put all that aside. That's not going to happen. And so that's where we talk, like how we talk about building relationships with kids is to get to know what their experiences like are at home, so that when they enter the classroom escalated, you already have some things kind of in your tool belt to like help de-escalate them or to redirect them in a way to get their brains ready to learn. Because then the long-term implications, right, is that they're not going to be ready for high school, which then in turn means that they're not going to be ready for whatever post-secondary path that they choose to take. And, that's what we really want to do. We want to open as many doors as possible for kids for their future. And middle school is equally as important as high school. We don't have credits, but we are getting them ready to learn in high school. And it's hard too, because, the students who really have or who are most at risk, it only makes up like 3 to 5% of the population. And so I think that it's easy for us to say, well, they're not our problem, or put them in, this intervention class and that person will help them. But really, each and every one of our students is ours, and so that's the approach that we take.
I love it. And I do think it's so important. I think there's just a level of people try to do the best with what they have that allows them to kind of have that mindset.
Mhm.
But I think for anyone who has done that kind of work on the opposite side of things that has vested time in that 3%, they saw the benefits almost leaps and bounds ahead of, the traditional, just because there was only that one or two things that needed tweaking with this student in order to truly pull out, their maximum potential. So I always love hearing those kind of stories and just love that people are more vested these days and like getting that kind of work done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that doing that work can just be taxing. So talk to me about what it looks like as a leader for yourself, as well as supporting your staff. What can be seen as such a heavy load sometimes. It is.
Yeah, I think that, the approach that I take is that like we have like these school-wide systems to support students. And so I always like when we're getting ready for our in-service for next week, that's what we're going to lead with. Is like this is what the data is telling us. This is what our students are telling us. And so these are the school-wide changes. So I kind of first start with like me, right? Like these are the changes that I'm making, and this is how you'll see me working towards that. And then we kind of go down to the micro. So first start macro, because if we start in the classroom, then I think, because you're right, everybody's doing their very, very, very best, right? So if you start in the classroom, then people tend to get defensive because they are doing the best that they can. And just like children, right? If we activate that emotional piece of their brain, then they're not going to hear anything else that we're doing to support them. So we start with that, and then we work our way into the classroom and talk about, okay, so what kind of support do you need from us to make sure that like our vision is met for kids?
I love it. I love it. So I think my next question is kind of aligned with that, but just this overall ideology of where schools are headed. I feel like there's so much change across just the landscape of K-12, whether it's public schools, private schools, like everybody's just trying to figure things out. There's the injection of AI. There's like all of these different things. And so my question would be almost, how are you focusing in on what's important, while kind of blocking out the noise of all of this. And I'm asking this question because I think to have a mission that is really aligned with not only instruction, but making sure that kids are mentally, taken care of, um, it allows you to say, and we are focused on these two things, we cannot be focused on everything else. And so I guess my question is, how do you do that? Because I know I'm almost like squirrely with just, not a world of marketing here at Lightspeed.
No, I think it's something that like it was a growth area for me for sure because in the classroom, like I would hear something new, I'm like, I'm not gonna wait, I'm gonna try it right now. And I would do these like little research projects like in my classroom all the time, and I was always everywhere. And then as a leader, I was super excited to like expand that, but then quickly realized like, oh my gosh, like all I'm doing is overwhelming my staff. And so it has taken a few years to hone that practice. And so, yeah, so it comes back to our vision. So this year, our vision is all around students being engaged in their learning and challenged academically. And that, again, comes directly from students. So those two pieces of information, the students told us last spring that they don't feel like they're engaged and they don't feel like they're challenged. So, and my staff was like, yeah, that's been like that for like the last few years. I'm like, well, let's do something about it. Right. So that has been like the vision that we rolled out in the spring. And so everything that's coming to us, it's either like, how does this fit into it? And if it doesn't, that's great, but we're going to table it for later. And my whole team knows it. The teachers will know about it next week. And so really that's the question, it's like convince me that it fits into these two things and I'll approve it. If not, even if it's fantastic, it's like, let's just wait. Maybe let's come back second semester and see if we have the capacity or if it fits in a different way.
I love it. And of course, that's like always the favorite thing when you're like full of ideas and thoughts and work. Not right now. Like I feel like not saying no, just not right now. So I love the idea of that because I'm sure people are bringing you amazing things that they want to do, but again,
all the time. And I hate saying no because I see the potential in it too. And they're like such wonderful professionals who, like they've been inspired and that's exactly what we want. But it's that, okay, how does it align? And if not, and everybody has always been so good and gracious about it. And I think that was part of my fear, as a new leader was, like crushing people's dreams and and they didn't take it that way. And so it's been helpful.
good, good. So my last kind of question is related to the future. So what are you excited about specifically for the future of your school, but then as well as the future of like K-12? Like what do you think about where you're like, oh, I can't wait till we get to this point, or I can't wait for us to do this thing?
Yeah, I think for my school, I just feel really privileged that I'm in a building where people are just ready to shake some things up for the, for students, for kids and for their families. And so I'm excited about that. It for the future, I think that just having some conversations around the importance of identifying students who are struggling with anxiety, depression, and not making it something that anybody should be ashamed of, but more of, we can walk alongside you and we can identify those risk factors and we can still support you through your education so that you have just as much access when you graduate high school that everybody else has. And that, like we don't want them to struggle. Yeah. So I think that that's what I'm excited about, just more people talking about it.
I love it. I love it. So before I let you go, I have two fun questions that I have to ask every guest. And so one question you kind of already dovetailed into it, but I'm curious if this is your answer. If you could remove one barrier for children at school, what would it be?
Yeah, I think just a lack of resources, just making sure that every school has the resources needed to support students' mental health and them academically.
Oh, let me. And the last question is my favorite. And that is, what is your favorite sound in the whole wide world?
So I think just my children's laughter, and I have a range of ages, and they, even at 29, 30 years old, it still doesn't get old. Like their laughter, they're the true gut laugh, Yeah.
Well, you can read that one a couple of times.
I was wondering, what that or a baby laughing? I'm sure there's so many.
So with that, I want to say thank you so much for doing this. I feel like it was so informational. And also I'm just excited about the future of this. I feel like this is such a topic that needs way more microphones on it, way more ears tuned into it. I think it's so important. I think it's going to take, all of our kids further than they've ever gone before to kind of just have this full circle of well-being. So to hear that you were focused in on that and as a leader, just tap into the ideal of this just brings me so much light. So I want to thank you. And thank you for just joining us and sharing.
Thank you for inviting me. It was great.
I'm like anytime and share more about what great things you're doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's all for today's Active Listener. Thanks for tuning in. Share your comments on this episode on our Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn social media pages. You can visit our website at lightspeed-tech.com to learn more about our mission to ensure every student hears every word. And subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Until next time, let your listening be as active as your learning.